Okay, so our next session here is going to be a panel that's actually going to be led by Kim Larsen. He's founder of TechNEconomY. Kim, if you want to come up and introduce your panel.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Patrick. So the pronunciation is TechNEconomY, but that's fine. I will not hold it against you. So let me go up here. So today we're going to talk about new operating models, ecosystem, and partnerships, and actually what we need to do to change the barriers that we have for that transformation. And for that, I would like to invite three speakers, or three panelists. It's Kirsty Bright from Virgin Media O2, who's actually director of Core Network Strategy. And then it is Philippe Ensarguet, who newest, brand new title is VP Software Engineering, but is coming from a role as a CTO in Orange Business Services. And finally, Stephen Spellicy, who is VP VMware. So, pleasure to have you here. If we start out with actually sort of dissecting what does a new operating model really mean, what does it mean for our organization, for our people, I'll sort of ask each of you to give me a kind of how does that personally connect with you, how is it relevant to what you do, and give a bit of a story around that particular topic. So maybe start with Philippe, as you're there.
Okay. So like you said, basically, I'm pure software, automation, and cloud-native guy. So I would say that the operating model that I wish to rely on, I would say would be certainly a cloud-native one. So a cloud-native operating model is an operating model where the infrastructure brings resiliency and self-healing and auto-healing capability, but having as well, I would say, a new operating model based on GitOps where we could tie, I would say, the deployment and the operation to be sure that we manage end-to-end the full spectrum. And I think that when you are in telco business, one of the main outcomes of the cloud-native journey is definitively to drive those new operating model and reaching what we had in the digital, you know, the SRE, the Service Reliability Engineer. Now we need Network Reliability Engineer.
All right. Kirsty, what does it mean to you?
I think to build on what Philippe said, I think with the operating model and touching on some of what some of the other speakers have been talking about is that product end-to-end operating model. And if you look at the evolution of our operating model over the last however many years, I mean, it's constantly evolving and changing as our industry is changing. But from the previous speaker referring to the customer experience, I think that's where looking at that end-to-end operating model from the network right up to the top, what's being delivered to the customer, is how do we bring that together so that we can join up the different parts of our business and have those customer journeys that also feed through with our operating model as well.
Cool. Stephen?
As the only software vendor on the panel, software is effectively defining how these organizations operate, especially as digital transformation is happening. With respect to the telco business, there's so much that can be gained from an operational efficiency perspective using software, from an operations perspective, from a customer success perspective, customer engagement, et cetera. The areas in which the part of the world at VMware that I represent are really around enabling operators to be able to modernize their infrastructure, and as a big part of that is the introduction of automation and orchestration technology. Not only for the VMware infrastructure, but also for the additional infrastructure that it connects to, the end-to-end operation. And the efficiencies that can be gained by driving software workflows enable the operations to do more with less. And that's very exciting, especially in today's economy where we are all being stretched to move in a direction of doing more with less.
Right. Well, that makes a lot of sense. So this morning we heard a lot about people, organizations, and basically I think it was a kind of cry for getting younger, fresh talent in. I'm not sure that will solve the whole problem. just as an anecdote, I mean, I had some years ago a really brilliant young person coming in from university working for us for some time, and when we asked him, hey, isn't it super cool? You should stay with us. He basically said, well, your organization is too old. And I think at that time, probably the average age was 50 plus in Deutsche Telekom. And he don't really understand software. So no, I will go back to university and I will look for something else. How do you see that with this really exciting? I think for all of us, we think it's a super exciting change, right, that's happening now. And you get hands on real software engineering. How do you see that with the people, the organization? And how do you shape that within your companies? Should we start with you, Philippe, again?
Okay,
Just
sure.
being untraditional.
So on this topic, basically what I would say is that we started a discussion with my peers talking about basically the cloud native substrate, okay? And here what is for me very interesting is that when you attend to, I would say, cloud native event, I was in KubeCon 2 weeks ago in Amsterdam for the whole week, you cannot imagine the level of energy that you can add there. And basically, what I really enjoy is that networking, connectivity is absolutely top of mind. And when you take into account this new generation from technical standpoint and all the challenges that we will have to manage in our industry, basically, I think that we should have a match because I think that we have no real option than to rely on what is currently under building by those community to change our operating model. So I would love to think that we could have a match because of a profound technology disruption.
So with that kind of passion, I mean, obviously, you would think it's surprising not for young people to join. Kirsty, how do you see that in your environment, your organization?
I'm quite passionate about this as well because this is about having a diverse workforce. So this is bringing in the new, fresh ideas and mixing those with those experienced ideas and people and minds as well. And it's learning from both sides because, I've witnessed it firsthand with one of my team who's now a doctor who is much, has many years of experience and knowledge and he's probably one of the best mentors for our apprentices and grads that come in and they learn off each other. And this is where we benefit as organizations by bringing in the young, fresh energy, but also by ensuring that we keep the experience, the knowledge, and we upskill them as well at the same time. We do need both, and I think that's absolutely critical for our success.
So Stephen, do you have the same challenges in VMware or in your industry?
It's interesting. I've worked for software developers I've worked in technology companies for multiple decades. And what I know about engineers is they like to be challenged. They like to be challenged with new technologies, new problems to solve. As we look at the transformation of what telco is currently going through, which is moving more from telco to techco, and you're emulating more of and sort of modeling more of what you see with the hyperscaler market, where the technologies are cloud native, where there's a vast amount of software technology to drive the business, improve how it operates, improve how it runs. I think you're going to see a lot more younger talent coming in who are excited about that transformation, the new tools, the new technologies. As AI emerges as one of the sort of stalwart technologies inside the operation, I believe there's a tremendous amount of opportunity for innovation with respect to not only developing AI, but also using it to program the network and to bring new capabilities and services to the market.
I would also just add, mind you, the younger generations that come through, they don't tend to want to stay with one organization for many, many years. I mean, that's how they look at jobs differently to how maybe the older generations look at jobs and companies where maybe they've been there 30 years. That seems like a very alien concept to some of the younger generations coming through. And so this is where we shouldn't feel that we've failed because we nurture some talent and then they go off somewhere else. That's because that's part of their trajectory for developing. But we need to make sure, as organizations, we're then attracting in people to sort of rotate and to backfill where maybe they've moved on to another organization.
If I may just perhaps a compliment. if I want to connect the dot with the previous brilliant presentation, on one of the slides, basically, when it was about the design of the platform, 100% cloud native, 100% open source, 100% open. I think that it's very important as well because the new generation that you spoke about basically are living here. And I'm observing our ecosystem and our, I would say, industry changing in this area. For instance, for years, when companies in telco industry need to work together, they build a joint venture. Today, we are building open source projects. So it's a new way of collaborating, a new way of learning, a new way of being committed, and to see and to observe the potential reach of the outcome that can be done by there as individual or as a teammates of, I would say, a company.
So if you were a young person today looking for what to do next, could be the twins or it could be somebody else, what would you recommend this person? To go to the telecom, like as we, apart from Steven, represent, or to maybe go to a VMware or to a system integrator or a software developer? I mean, I have my passion, I have my heart by the telco, but you could imagine this is a choice that young people have today, because as you say, if you join Orange, Deutsche Telekom, Virgin Media, whoever out there, you will not have your hands on everything, and you may not even have your hands on the real exciting stuff that VMware will bring to the table, or somebody else will bring to the table. So what would you recommend to such a person? I mean, it would be the obvious, but anyway, I'll let you.
I think it's a very tricky question,
what would you do today, Philippe, if you were looking at new, let's say, fresh, looking at opportunities around you in this area?
I think I will certainly make it totally different than what I did in the past. The trends of innovation, the way the business are building, the ways the startups and the economy is moving forward is totally different than when I started 30 years back. So honestly, it's basically the advice I'm currently giving to my child about be curious, be passionate, identifying their North Star and be committed on where they think they can bring the more value. When you have a very, very high skill in the topic about networking, about cloud-native networking, basically you may find a home, whether is it on software vendor or living where we are working. Yeah. So, quite open.
What about you, Kirsty? Let's make it personal. What would you choose today?
I'm probably not a great example because I've got a music degree. So
I was actually thinking the same. I would probably study law or something else.
Yeah, so I completely fell into technology and as a temp whilst doing my music on the side, and then I shifted completely into the tech world. So I basically learn what I've learned on the job, actually in there. I actually found going to data centers exciting. That's how boring clearly I was. And but if I speak to a lot of graduates, I speak to a lot of younger people. My own son being one of them, he's 13. But I think it's around versatility and having that ability to be able to adapt and to be able to get involved in enough different areas. So you look at the different graduate schemes that a lot of the operators offer, and I think this is a big selling point for the operators, is that you get the opportunity to try different areas. So one rotation might be software engineering, one rotation might be network, much more network focused and network engineering. Another area might be something completely different. So it gives people that opportunity to, rather than make a decision straight away and say, this is what I want to do, they have maybe a computer science degree or whatever degree, and they go in then, and then they understand where they might feel that they actually connect with and what resonates with them.
Yeah. So maybe a slightly different question for you, Steven. What does VMware, what do you require of the young talent that comes in today, or require from your engineering force in general, for actually continuing to stay agile and being, let's say, a value to the company?
There are some baseline requirements in a software development company. If you're an engineer, you have to be an engineer. You have to understand how to write software. However, employers like VMware and others in the tech industry are looking for very diverse backgrounds. To your point, Kirsten, it's, having a variety versatile background, having a variety of experience, having worked in banking, finance, military and defense, whatever it is, that creates context for you as an employee, as a resource in a company. Your diverse background and experience can be used and leveraged. Think of it from the perspective of approaching problems differently and coming up with unique and new solutions. And so I think from that perspective, you're an engineer, you have the basic skills, you're current and up to speed on all the current technology trends and the top languages, if you will, that you're going to be asked to program within. Having that experience, that's a baseline, and then going beyond that is bringing the context of your own experience to the table. The ones that I've seen be very successful in this transformation, moving from industry to industry, the ones that are hungry and eager, the ones that want to learn, the ones that want to experiment, and the ones that are willing to take chances. And that's where we see the disruption happen at the innovation layer. And new ideas come to the table, great new products come to the market, and industries transform as a result of it. That's where we see, and that only happens when you bring diverse backgrounds, diverse interests, and different ways of looking at solving problems.
If I may just add something here, what I really enjoy in what my peer said is that there is a question about core foundational block. And I think it's very important. If I remember back when I was a teenager, I was playing games like Dungeon Master and so on. And you can't join level in terms of dungeon if you do not have integrate or learn the basic skills. And with A plus B skills, you have a new skills. And I think it's extremely important to understand which are, I would say, the core building block that you need to master if you want to be sure you can, I would say, travel your journey, whatever is your choice, whether is it in VMware or working in telco industry.
Oh, I think that's a very interesting concept. Just, I mean, as I'm talking about with my son, who obviously sees I love technology, I'm very passionate about it, and he sort of thinks that this about being passionate about a thing is okay, it's good, it's what you need, right? And I'm always telling him, that's fine, that's great, but if you want to play a guitar and be passionate about that, that's good. But you need to work hard. You need to know your basics. It's not like, I'm passionate about AI, I've taken a Coursera course, I will start now to be the next AI guru. That doesn't work like that. So still I think it's very important, and I do think young people understand that you do also need still to work hard nowadays. You do need to understand the thing, you need to know several, actually. What I really love is the diversity, because I think a lot, the mindset, I think, at least when I started out, where you have to be super good at this particular item. That's what makes you a good engineer. You understand everything about that screw, how it works, what it consists of, and that's all you need. While I think today, it is about diversity, that is being good, not just at one thing, but actually many things, and still having the passion for actually going through that kind of learning process. Let's change it a bit. We all know about the generative AI, chat, GPT, auto GPT, GPT, whatever, XGPT, I think, if you look at all the apps out there, and the potential for that, which is as many things, both positive and it's negative. And I've seen people claim that with this kind of generative AI, you basically get zero touch. So where does it leave your organization, your people, the future of engineering?
I think that we are at a moment in time with generative AI where I should say we don't know. We don't know what will be tomorrow because we don't know what we are living now. I would say just 1 year before, or 6 months before, okay? So it's obvious that it will heavily impact the way we are working, but at which level, in which dimension? Today, generative AI is pretty good with public information, but we are all running private business. So how we will interlink the public applied generative AI technology with the one with the data set that are living in our own companies. So this intersection needs to make proof. And I would say we should keep very cautious about of course, the ethics, but the potential addiction, the potential lock-in, because I'm afraid that the business model around generative AI today are not so clear about, and it's in the end of very few big tech, because the power that is needed to feed the beast is absolutely in the end of very, very small number of companies. So it's obvious that it will bring some disruption, but I think it's very, very hard to say at which level.
And it's probably also very early days. Kirsty, when you talk to your team and to new candidates coming in, is it something that moves them? Is it something that they're worried about? What would actually happen? And say I come in and work for you, AI happens, and all the skills and everything I've learned would basically, well, be a hobby and no longer a work because something has taken over my job. Is it something that runs around young people, young talents, or even the old ones, for that matter?
I think it's a not a general concern. I think that's the wrong way to frame it. But I think just to give you an example from my own experience. So one of my roles when I was in Vodafone was deploying what at that time was called a cognitive agent, which then evolved, then everything was then AI. And this was rolling out, it was the first time anything like it had been done. It was cutting edge technology. We were the first in the industry to do it. And it was effectively automating the service desk process with all the back-end automation. So it was quite sophisticated. And there was the fear from the service desk that their jobs were going to go. But actually, that's not what happened. They changed. And the technology also was crawling, so it was taking a long time. There were a lot of problems. It required human beings to build it, to feed it, to monitor it, to ensure that it was ethically correct, everything that went with it. And then we created new roles. It was the first time you were seeing data scientists coming in. It was the first time we were creating cognitive engineers, which would now maybe be an AI engineer. We had a role which we called a humanizer, which was because a lot was being built in Egypt and they were putting in text that, we then needed to have someone that could make sure that the language coming through the chat side was humanized and was correct. So there were all these different roles that were created and so actually, from a business case point of view, if you were looking at it from are we going to reduce numbers of heads, it probably didn't hit that, but actually it evolved the business. And so I think to your point, Philippe, we don't really know what changes will happen, but I think as an organization it's being agile enough to adapt, to upskill, to not be afraid to change a role into something else, and actually to stimulate those individuals in a different way. So.
Well, that's a great framing. Stephen, what about you and VMware? I mean, you must be playing with this stuff already now, right?
Of course, yeah. AI, I believe, is absolutely essential to the survival of the technology industry, but I think it also will provide an accelerant for society. And I mean this as much as, and for the industry, and we'll talk about telco. The amount of information that gets created every second has only doubled, tripled, quadrupled since a minute ago, right? So the vast amount of event information that's out there, the enormity of that challenge of being able to manage information is beyond human capacity. The people in this room could not get behind all the various screens and manage all the data that gets created every second. We need AI, we need automation type and analytic technology that'll actually sift, sort, and prioritize the information so that humans can interpret what's most valuable and useful. AI itself, I think, is a tool, and we need to view it in that way. My perspective on AI, as far as disruption is concerned, is that those who own the AI, those who manage or, let's say, program the AI, are going to be in the best position to leverage the AI. If you ignore AI, you'll be in the worst position. So I think I'd advocate the sense of embracing. How many folks in this room use a phone book today? Like literally open up the yellow pages? Probably none of you. How many of you use search to look for a telephone number? Probably all of you. You've transformed that simple step, that process that 20 years ago, we would have all opened a phone book. In 5, 10 years, a year from now, We will be leveraging AI to do many of the tasks that we did yesterday. But we won't be afraid to use it. We won't be afraid to open a phone book or look at a search page or use an AI bot in order to get a job or a task completed. It's that view of things, it's that approach, that mentality that we need to embrace.
No, I agree. I mean, there's an example that I very often program Python, and I think I'm a pretty okay Python programmer, developer, but then for fun I chose a ChatGPT and say, hey, can you do this for me? Can you make the Python code for this? And it really seriously annoyed me that it was definitely more efficient and better than what I had come up with. Still the same solution, but better. So I think the message here is that your organization will develop with the technology, and particularly if you have an agile technology, which we require of young people and the way that we actually shape our business, it's probably not going to be that bad. If you sort of look in the crystal ball and look 10 years ahead, how do you think your organization will look like? Sort of an ideal organization in terms of how you do your work. Do you still have big tech organizations with the telcos, or are they all with the VMwares, with the Netcracker, sorry for whatever company you can imagine, and they do all the work for you? How will that be? We'll start with Philippe.
It's an interesting question, and okay, the crystal ball is always a good friend for this exercise. I would say that if I considered what happened in startup, digital, IT, network, telco, all verticals are fallen down into a horizontal platform model. So I would say that I wish that in 5 or 10 years from now, we will reach, I would say, a very, very mature level of platform engineering, because at the end of the day, a 5G stack, an Open RAN stack, AI workload, what is it other than a cloud-native application? Okay, so it means that we need absolutely to have very strong foundation. This foundation should be, I would say, spread all over the companies and bring the workload to support the new operating model. And I truly believe that it's more important than ever to own this technology. It doesn't mean that we won't rely on companies like VMware. It's not my point. But if you don't own it, you are not able to tweak it, to fine-tune it, to optimize it for the cases that are at the very, very far border of the cases you need to support your business.
You might not feel as responsible for this as you would do otherwise. Kirsty, what do you think? 10 years from now, plus?
Well, 10 years, it's a long time in the tech world, isn't it? I think, I guess to keep it simple, I think we're part of an ecosystem. And I think touching on some of the keynote, I mean, it is understanding where we play in that ecosystem with the hyperscalers, but also being very conscious of the fact that as operators, a big chunk of our business is our network, and we mustn't forget that. But it really is kind of building on top of that, and what is that value that we're giving to our customers with our products and our services, but how we play in that ecosystem with our partners.
Right. Stephen?
I think the landscape for how we work is going to fundamentally change. It has already changed in the last 2 years based on the pandemic. I've worked from home for over 15 years. I've led product management organizations, marketing organizations, worldwide organizations. It doesn't matter where you sit. I think some businesses and some tasks within some jobs and roles within companies are definitely more physically oriented, and they have to be in an office or have to be on a location in order to do a job. But many of the jobs that are being created today, those that are information oriented, will be done everywhere and anywhere at any moment. Technology and what much of the work that you guys do and the work that VMware and others do is an enabling piece of that puzzle. We need to make people's lives easier, better, all right? So they'll be better and more productive. Technologies and connectivity will enable that lifestyle change. It will enable the worker of the next generation to be more productive in how they generate value for their business. That's already happening today. We saw that in a reactive sense in the pandemic, but I think as we look proactively, what can we do as technology providers, telecom operators, society to enable people to have better, healthier lives using that technology, using that connectivity, so they can be more productive in their day-to-day.
Right. Okay. I think we may, I don't know if we, Patrick, if we still have time for questions or no? Okay. then let's just have a final remark. I mean, definitely in 10 plus years, probably the average age in technology organizations around the world will be a bit lower than it is today. That's my prediction. We will see. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.